Hello and good evening, everyone, to all our alumni and students of the University of Toronto, Faculty of Applied Science and Engineering, and everyone tuning in from all over the world. This evening, we have alumni and students joining us from all over the globe. We'd love if you could type, but we know there's a bit of a problem with the typing when we get that up and running. If you could type where you're calling in from. Welcome, everyone. My name is Sonia DeBulio, and I'm the Director of Alumni Relations for the Faculty of Applied Science and Engineering. Thanks for joining us here tonight and for the Power of Mentorship discussion panel. We're all here to learn more about the Engineering Alumni Mentorship Program. Before starting, I wish to acknowledge this land on which the University of Toronto operates. For thousands of years, it has been the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and most recently, the Mississaugas of the Credit River. Today, this meeting place is still home to the many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land. As you know, we have kicked off a new academic year at U of T Engineering, one where students are primarily learning online. While this is a school year that looks unlike any before, it's also been an opportunity for our global engineering community to come together. The Alumni Mentorship Program is a great example of how our alumni and students now have a chance to connect, no matter where they may be located, and work together to build and grow. We would like to inform you that today's session is being recorded, so it can be shared with any interested students and alumni who were unable to attend this evening. Just a quick housekeeping item to please send your questions to our panelists through the group chat section. Hopefully that'll be working soon. I guess you could also use the Reddit or through Steve Radburn. We have admin staff who are pulling together all of your questions so that they don't get lost. And we'll help our moderator get through as many of them as possible during the presentation. We also ask that you please refrain from any side conversations in the group chat function so we don't distract from our panel today. I also want to thank Manulife for their sponsorship of the Alumni Mentorship Program through U of T's Pillar Sponsorship Program. So now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to our Alumni Mentorship Leadership Team, who will be helping to lead today's panel. Luigi Lacorte is the Program Chair of the Engineering Alumni Mentorship Program. Luigi is a Civil 1T4 plus PY graduate and a director at Plenary Group. Welcome, Luigi.
Thank you, Sonia.
Maxwell Guima is the student body president for the Alumni Mentorship Program. Maxwell is currently in his third year in mechanical engineering and also on the U of T varsity football team. Let's hope they can get back to playing soon. The Alumni Mentorship Program student body president is a new role in AMP, and Maxwell and his leadership team are here to provide a more direct line of feedback and communication for our student mentees. Welcome, Maxwell.
Hey, everybody.
And with that, welcome. And with that, I will turn it over to Luigi to introduce our panelists.
Thank you, Sonia, and thanks to everybody who took time out of your busy Wednesday to join our conversation about mentorship. A couple of quick housekeeping notes. For those who are on the panel, try and keep your mic on mute unless you're speaking. That'll just avoid some feedback and some noise that we're bound to hear. And for everyone on the call, apologies that the chat isn't working currently. I'm sure it'll be up and running shortly. In the interim, please submit your questions either to Steve Radburn through the email he provided or Reddit. We'll have a live conversation going there in the lounge. Okay, so without further ado, why don't we start? So again, thanks everyone for joining. Today we're going to be talking about two things. The first thing is going to be talking about mentorship, or the first thing we're talking about is mentorship and why mentorship is important. Hence the name of the panel, The Power of Mentorship. And the second thing we want to do is raise awareness of the program where you can find mentorship, the Alumni Mentorship Program, which is the program that's hosting this panel discussion. So to do that, we put together a panel of people who are fairly connected to mentorship in some capacity or the other, and people who we think have a very valuable perspective on mentorship, career progression, and just navigating the generalities of life. So I'd like to introduce our four panelists for today. John Lem. John, if you're on, you want to provide just a quick overview of who you are?
Hey everyone, my name is John Lem. I'm OT5. I did engineering science comp option. Just quick background. I know it sounds cliche, but I've morphed from an engineer into an entrepreneur. Founded a number of companies over the years, as well as worked in finance. Over the course of my career, I've probably raised more than $50 million to various entities myself. Hired, close to 100 people. Built numerous companies that various stages in their life cycle. And early on in my career, straight out of school, I worked for a hedge fund. So I've had a very wide variety of experiences, and happy to share some of that today.
Thanks so much, John. Looking forward to chatting with you about it. We also have Tony Tao, who's a student currently on PY at Alstom. Tony, do you want to say hello and introduce yourself quickly?
Hi everyone, my name is Tony. I'm on third year mechanical engineering. I'm doing a PY in Alstom transportation right now.
Awesome, thanks Tony. We also have on Gina McCullen Long, and apologies if I mispronounce your last name. Do you want to provide a quick overview of yourself?
Sure. First of all, it's Gina McCullen. That's okay.
Sorry.
I graduated a long time ago, before any of you were probably. And I'm a best-selling author of 2 books, The Secret of Successful Failing and Think or Sink. These don't sound like engineering books because they're not. I'm an expert in the mind. I'm an expert in the process of change and the mechanics of our minds. About 20 years ago, I started a company called the Greatness Group, and we basically teach people how to hack the systems of their mind to get better performance in various different ways, both corporate and personal. And believe it or not, it was my engineering education in process control. It was the foundation for all of the work that I do now today.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Gina. Looking forward to talking to you. And last but not least, Victor Xin, who is the former chair of the AMP. Victor, do you want to give a quick overview of yourself?
Sure, yeah. Hey, everyone. Victor Xin, NSI LTH PEY. After graduation, I started my career in infrastructure private equity investing with the Macquarie Group. And then after which I did my MBA at Columbia Business School in New York City. After which I came back to Toronto and started my own investment firm, Gina Capital Partners. And so now as Luigi has mentioned, I used to serve as the chair of the Alumni Mentorship Program, but in addition to that, I am fairly active in various other charitable organizations, such as the World Wildlife Fund and a few others. So happy to share my experience on how I made my journey through over the past decade, and share my experience with the mentors that has helped me along the way.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Thanks so much, Victor. So what's clear is we have a very experienced panel group that in one way or another has touched mentorship or has been a part of mentorship. And to my earlier point, what we want to talk about today is the power of mentorship and how mentorship can impact your lives. So the first question I'd like to ask is actually for all panelists. Feel free to take it as you'd like. Based on where you all are today, could you provide a quick anecdote about how mentorship has directly affected you and how it's improved your life? Maybe John, if you want to start.
Sure, I'm just going to mute myself. So I would say my very first mentor, who I still keep in touch with after knowing him for 15 years, is he really put me on a path that was very different to engineering when I graduated and I joined a hedge fund. So he was an investment banker. He had actually done engineering at Waterloo. He was actually going to be, I think, employee number, I think he said like 47 at BlackBerry, and he turned it down. And so I remember the first day I walked in the office, we were setting up a new office, and I was in a t-shirt, and we just talked about how he had gotten to where he was. And that really just opened my eyes to the possibility, because when he told me that he could have been one of the early employees of Research in Motion and he turned it down, at the time, Research in Motion was one of the largest companies in Canada. And so that we talked about finance, we talked about a different career path that was completely different from engineering. And I ended up joining that hedge fund, and that completely changed the course of my life. So being involved with the mentor like that as effectively a summer student really opened my eyes to what's possible beyond just engineering and the broader world.
Yeah, and I think that's what one of the main benefits of mentorship is. There's so many things that you don't know, that you're not exposed to, or that you can't be exposed to in a normal course. But then there are these people, these mentors or the alumni, who've already experienced, let's say, a lot more than you have. They can open up your view or your experience, substantially easier. You don't have to go through the same things that they've done. Same question for Gina.
So I had kind of had two mentors after coming out of school, and one was my thesis professor from fourth year. So Professor Cluett, when I decided to write The Secret of Successful Failing, it's actually based on process control, but I needed to sort of talk it out with him so that I could get the technicalities as I mapped across correct. And he spent tons of time with me. That was about 15 years after graduating. So we're talking about a very long relationship. And then at the same time, I had a more of a business mentor who taught me how to become a best-selling author. And it's a man by the name of Bob Proctor. And there was no reason for him to help me other than I asked. And so those two people basically helped me flip the career into what it is today. And it was based on what I love. And so I knew that I needed help, but they went above and beyond sort of normal helping people out to get this off the ground because they were excited about my vision for what was possible. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I get to my earlier point, it's so fundamental, the exchange of knowledge between mentor and mentee that creates value. And what we'll talk about later on in the conversation is, how do we make that exchange seem fair? I think a lot of students wonder, how can I participate in a mentor-mentee relationship when I'm just asking questions? Can I provide value? So we'll come back to you on that, Gina. Thank you so much. Tony, same question for you.
Yeah, so I joined the mentorship program just last year, but I found three wonderful mentors. One of them is Luigi. The other ones are Philip and Susan. Because of them, they helped me landed my first PEY job. When I joined the program, I was very nervous. I didn't know if I could get any job offers. So before every interview, I would talk to them, and they will help me to practice and answer some of the questions I have. And at the end, I found a PEY that I really enjoy.
Awesome. Yeah, I should have disclosed that Tony is a mentee of mine, but I figured he'd be someone who could talk about mentorship pretty directly, having been in the program last year. And Victor, how about yourself?
Sure. Yeah. So I'd say one of the more influential mentors along the way for me was my my first boss out of school. He started he as an engineer coming into a finance job. I started knowing nothing, right? And I still remember the first assignment that I got was a very simple task of just kind of running some numbers on a traffic report that we had just to calculate whether the number of cars going on one of our toll roads was going up or down. And I put my engineer's hat on and did all these differential equations on there to try to fit all these crazy statistical curves to the data, and thinking, oh, I did a great job. But it turns out, that was not what they needed at all. But my boss turned around and helped me understand sort of there are different approaches to solving problems, and sometimes it's not just about you going down a rabbit hole and doing what you think is best, but simply to ask for guidance, right? And that's the first thing my mentor taught me, is how to talk to a mentor, or how to seek out a mentor and get help from a mentor. It's basically, when you don't know something, it's the first time you're doing something, simply ask for help, ask for clarification, and then everything will be so much easier for everyone involved. And then later on, after I got my MBA and came back to Canada, he became one of my first investors, and just kind of is always a wonderful sounding board for me whenever I have things, things that I think I know how to do best, but I actually have no idea at all. Just to simply go to him and say, hey, this is what I think is happening. This is how I think I should deal with it. what do you think? And he'll give me his, best honest answer.
Yeah, absolutely. I also find mentors are amazing for bouncing ideas off of. Even if it's a quick chat or a quick beer, there's a lot of things that you can help discover or help with your own problems just by having a quick conversation. I want to change the conversation very quickly. Obviously, we have a lot of accomplished people on the panel, and generally there's a lot of discussion about mentorship in the context of doing better, getting jobs, achieving goals. But for some people, there may be different concerns, or they may be interested in simpler outcomes, such as improving mental health. Sorry, not simple, but different outcomes: mental health, coping with stress, having someone to talk to. Do you think mentorship has a role here? And this question will be specifically for Gina and Victor.
Oh, for sure. I mean, speaking as a mentor, and I see how's my internet? Because I see it just went red again. Can you hear me? Yeah. So one of the things you need to get when you're a mentee is that the mentor wants to help you for the sake of helping you. And so it really does give us joy to see you succeed. And if part of that success is getting what you need to support the whole person, then I don't know a person on the planet that wouldn't help. I mean, we've been down the road. We've had to deal with more stresses probably than somebody who's still starting up in their life. And so you should absolutely be asking for what it is that you need to support what you're trying to do. And that's just speaking for me, that I would absolutely share those resources and think that they're an integral part of success.
Yeah, and to the same point, people love talking about advice generally, and I agree. I think mentorship or mentors do want to just help. They want to see their mentees succeed. Victor?
Yeah, and I think this is a great question. I'm really interested in reading Gina's book about successful failure. I don't remember the whole title, but like this is such an important topic, I think, for everyone, but people, entrepreneurs especially. I think when it comes to, I guess, mental health, I guess I can talk about one specific aspect of it, which is the stress that you deal with when you encounter an extremely significant failure the first time around, right? And when I started up, I have had times where I lost significant amounts of money from my investors, right? And the first time you encounter such a situation, the stress and the pain is simply, I guess, indescribable for someone that hasn't gone through it, right? And I think my mentors, one in particular, a very successful investor, has actually gone through bankruptcy himself, right? And he started his own firm and lost all the money. So and during he was able to, I spoke with him and sort of sought his guidance around sort of what he went through, how he dealt with it, how he was able to sort of reinvent himself out of that, right? And sort of it turns out that the pain you feel and the stress you feel and all the I guess a lot of the factors that impact your mental health, as well as just to be the best version of yourself, the ability to do that. Many others have experienced and many others have gone through it in a similar situation. So being able to have someone that you respect to explain to you, to share their experience with you, and to offer sort of not to say here's what you do, but simply to share their journey, I think is immensely valuable.
Yeah, completely agree. And I think a lot of mentees or people in relationships, they feel bad about asking questions sometimes. But again, people are there generally because they want to help, so feel free to ask them. Along the same topic, we have a question in the Reddit lounge. Sometimes mentees wonder how they can reciprocate in a mentor-mentee relationship. Question for John and maybe Tony. How would you suggest students conduct themselves, undergraduate or graduate, so that they feel it's a bi-directional relationship instead of just one-way question asking? Another way to ask this question is, what do you look for in a relationship with a mentee?
Sure, I can start on that. The number one thing that I look for just generally in life, and getting various business enterprises, making connections, is you just want to be around people that are interesting people and that have a goal in life and want to be successful. And for me, some of the people that I've helped over the years, that's all I'm really looking for. It's that I can play a small part, or make a small impact on their life's journey, and the same way that people have done that for me. Because where I am today, it's definitely not just because of me. There's a lot of people along the way that have helped me, and those people never asked, they never asked for anything from me. It was more they were once in that same situation, and they're just trying to help. So I think it's as simple as that. It's just seeing people that you give advice to or try and help, see that they do well. Just live your life and do well, and that's reward in of itself.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of things you just said resonate. Number one, you're not there by yourself. I think a lot of people who are smart realize that there's no such thing as being a self-made person, right? There are people in your life who influence you, who push you in one direction or another. And obviously, you need to put a lot of work in yourself. But someone like Arnold Schwarzenegger, he says the same thing. I'm not a self-made man. He's had people who have influenced him, who have put him in a position of success or have empowered him to be successful. And I think the same thing can be true in a mentorship relationship, right? You are given tools to succeed, and it's just one of those tools. Tony, being fresh out of a mentor-mentee relationship, how do you feel like you've contributed to, let's say, our conversations?
Yeah, well, for me, I feel like every time I talk to my mentor, it sounds more like a casual conversation with a friend. So I do see that they offer me a lot of advice, but I don't feel the pressure of have to giving back something immediately. It's more like establishing a long-term relationship with them. I'm very grateful that they helped me along the way.
Yeah, and to that end, it is a friendship. You do have a conversation with someone who's interesting and who can talk about things, and you do share a background. We're all from U of T, right? So there's a lot of common ground. Pivoting a bit, why don't we talk about something else? So the length of time that you talk to somebody in this type of relationship, it varies, right? And it varies depending on a couple things. Chemistry, is there enough stuff to talk about, stuff of that nature. I've had mentees where we've had conversations, let's say for a semester, and I've had others and mentors that I still talk to this day, multiple years. Question for John and Victor. How would you recommend creating a network of people or a group of mentors that you can have sustained conversations with over a long period of time? Whereas as opposed to having, let's say, short-term, just semester-long conversations.
Yeah, so networking is a question that everyone wants to know how to create a better network, right? I think universally, we all want to have people in various parts in our life, whether it's professionally or personally, that can uplift us, that can inspire us, that can help us. And the way I have built my network, it's been completely organically. Right? Every time I'm involved, either personally or professionally in endeavor, whether I'm volunteering, whether I'm in business, I naturally seek out people that I wouldn't say are like me. It's just that I feel as if we resonate and we have a good connection. And for some of the people that I've maintained in my network, sometimes it's just you're just friends with them, right? You're acquaintances, and I always think maybe there's never a way that you get anything from them, but maybe there is. Maybe it's like 10 years from now, 20 years from now. It's just something that, as long as you put forth something where you're bringing something to the table, and it could be as simple as interesting conversation. It can be as simple as you do them a favor. It could be as simple as you have a coffee with them, or you run into them in some sort of endeavor. That can be enough. And what I've found universally is capable and successful people are actively trying to seek out other capable and successful people. It's like every single capable and successful people, that they think about this all the time. And it's some of it's deliberative, but some of it's just, you just want to be around people that have similar traits and goals. And I think just by virtue of being at University of Toronto and being an engineer, you're already in a separate class, right? Like when I was in engineering science, it was a lot of really motivated, intelligent, bright kids. that were trying to make it in the world. And I keep in touch with a lot of them as classmates.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think it's a bit daunting when students hear about, just reach out to someone and have an interesting conversation. I know I felt, maybe I'm not interesting enough to have a conversation with somebody. And I think the first step to changing that, if you do feel that way, is, I've heard this before, the first step to being interesting is to be interested. If you show somebody that you're interested in what they're doing, even if you fake it, fake it till you make it's another one. People like that and they respond to that and they want to talk to you. So putting yourself out there and being interested is the first step. Victor, how about you?
Yeah, I agree with everything that was just said. And so the one thing I would add to that is sort of, I think the best way I can describe it is to be persistent but not obsessive, right? I think it's really important for you to always be conscious of your desire to expand your network and take every opportunity you have to meet new people, to speak with them, to learn what they do, and to try to maintain this relationship. But you will, at the same time, I guess somewhat touch on the mental health, but for your own sanity, not be so obsessed that you should get or expect that you get a response or get a favorable response from every single outreach that you do, right? I think, you might meet 100 people and you feel like you are interested in maintaining or interested in adding 10 of those to your network, and maybe you reach out to 10, but, be satisfied that one of them actually gave you a favorable response and not only would like to get to, sort of help you out, but also to get to know you better, right? So I think it's just about you being conscious of this need and then going out every day, every week, every year to work on this, but at the same time not be too hung up on someone not responding to your email or something like that. Just sort of always, like Luigi said, be interested in other people. Try to talk to them and ask them to share their proudest moments, and you'll be surprised sort of how quickly the trickles will add up to a stream, and the streams will add up to a river.
Absolutely, yeah. Momentum is really powerful in life, and it can be small steps, talking to someone, even coming to this info session, that could be part of momentum. You meet someone or you heard a phrase that sticks with you. I want to pivot a bit. So, Gina, I saw you nodding your head when I had that phrase out there. I think it's a really common one, but really interested in your experience giving your best-selling books. There's a lot of questions about education and career path. It's very common topics, as John had mentioned. How do you see mentorship as a tool in the quest to understand what they should be doing or what someone should be pursuing? And what would you recommend to help answer those questions? I know they're really broad, but I feel like you have the tools to give some good advice.
Well, I'm laughing because I was laughing at your phrase, fake it till you make it. So when you write a book called The Secret of Successful Failing and you have a chemical engineering degree, a lot of people, they don't understand. So the entire beginning of my career was completely faked. But I knew what I was talking about. So what I always encourage people to do is, if you follow, and I'm stealing Joseph Campbell's advice here, if you follow your bliss, if you follow what makes you happy, it doesn't matter what your education is. If you follow that, then you can't go wrong. And the only difference between you and somebody perhaps who's a little further along the success road than you are is they just know a bit more about how life is working. So if you know what you love to do and you find somebody else who does what you want to do or shares your love, and they have more experience, then just ask for help, because the truth of the matter is that if it's ever been done before, it can be replicated. So all you got to do is find the person who's done it and replicate it. And what I've come across is that most people in life want to help others succeed, but they can't help you. They're not mind readers. So you have to ask, you have to seek them out, and you have to do this based on your common interest. And then the sheer joy of watching someone succeed is usually why a mentor does the role. So don't worry so much about, oh God, I'm going to get shot for this, but don't worry so much about the courses you're taking per se, unless you love them. Worry more about how you're going to wrap that up in the unique expression of who you are, and then go find a way to express that and find people who can help you get there.
Yeah, that's incredible advice. I've heard very similar things. In school, it's a very structured game, and you're playing that game to win marks, right? And that's the metric that you're being evaluated. You get out of school, that metric system isn't there anymore. You're not really being evaluated by marks. You can evaluate yourself based on your own compass, right? And that compass can be pointed towards dollars. It can be pointed towards the amount of people you've impacted. But you need to determine what that compass points to. So really good points there, Gina. I really appreciate it. More of a discussion now. Hindsight's 2020, and I'm wondering what you would all do now, or based on what you all know now, what would you do differently if you were back in university? Maybe in terms of mentorship, maybe in terms of something else. It can be free flowing. John, why don't we start with you? Actually, Tony, I haven't asked you in a bit. I know you're still in university, but based on what you've learned this year, if you were back in first year, what would you have done differently, or what would you have changed, if anything?
Regarding mentorship in general, or
it can be regarding mentorship. It can just be general. If you were back in first year, based on what you know now, what would you do differently, if anything? And doing nothing differently is an answer as well. If you don't want to say you would change anything.
Yeah, no. In the first year, I remember after I did my first Math 188, I forgot the course name. Was that Math 188 was linear algebra? Yeah, after the midterm. Yeah, linear algebra. Yeah, after the first midterm, I was like, I thought the world was gonna end, because I'm a student from British Columbia, and then in in BC, we didn't have any linear algebra in high school. I know in Ontario they did half year of linear algebra. So in the first day of class, when we came in, the prof just straight up told us, "Oh, you guys all know all this." So he just quickly went through all the stuff that people did in Ontario for half a year in like one lecture, and I didn't know what's going on. So after the first midterm, yeah, I thought I was gonna fail the class, but I ended up doing not so bad. So maybe don't worry about it too much. But linear algebra is useful though. Like you thought you're done, then once you go to second year, it comes back. So watch out.
Good point. Victor, how about you? Based on what you know today, is there anything you would do differently, or would you lean into something a bit more, knowing what you know now?
Yeah, I think I would have spent much less time on my assignments and a lot more time on meeting interesting people like you, Luigi. I know that everyone says this, that nobody looks at your marks after your graduation and all that kind of stuff. But it feels so much different when you're in the seat, right? When you do have that midterm coming up, and when you will get a grade at the end of the semester, sometimes that just feels so much more tangible than the airy promises all your mentors tell you that all the good things that's gonna happen to you after school. But at the same time, though, I think just like everything else in life, you need to find the balance for yourself, right? You need to think about, okay, just be honest with yourself. How important is sort of this course and this grade for you, right? And sometimes it is important, right? For example, if you're trying to land that I don't know, if you're really interested in a particular research position in a particular lab and you have to take a course with that professor, it's probably not a good idea for you to fail his course and then try to ask him to take you on as a research assistant, right? So there are things that do matter in the short and long term, but at the same time, just think about sort of your marginal cost and your marginal benefit, right? Is it really worthwhile for you to just be so immersed in studying for the next midterm or working on this assignment that you're giving up the opportunity to meet some tremendously interesting people, right? At a particular lunch and learn event by the faculty, right? Or something else, right? It's just something that you need to think about. Or again, just like I said before, it's something that you need to be constantly conscious of, but you don't need to obsess over it, right? Like just don't obsess over your homework and don't obsess over you might potentially miss one event. In the grand scheme of things, none of these individual events matter. You just have to be conscious of how they add up, right? And sort of how and to sort of use Gina's words, right? Like it's all about who you are as a collective whole, right? And sort of what story you're going to tell about yourself. It's not, with one thing is not going to make or break it, but you just have to be conscious of how every decision you make is towards that final goal that you're trying to get to.
Yeah. There's a lot of knowledge there that's really important. You are the collective sum of your experiences, and if you do want to enrich one part, sometimes it's a bit of a sacrifice. So it is a hard balance between marks and, let's say, networking. Gina, how about you? One thing that you would change if you were back in university, or lean into, or invest more in?
See, I always knew what I wanted to do. I didn't think it was possible. I can say what everybody else has said, which is I worry less, which is true, but I can only say that now that I'm done with it. So I can remember what it's like for those of you who are still in it. And I know what it's like to worry about every mark, and I get it. So I don't know if I could have done anything differently in that respect, but I think I would have leaned into my instincts more, because I already knew that the mechanics, I was mechanical, but of the mind, not of machines. And I would have leaned into that a little bit more, and I would have stood up for it more. But I don't know that I could have worried less about my courses. But I do want to point this out to the young people right now. There's a difference between doing your best on something versus holding yourself up to an impossible standard of perfectionism, which I see a lot with the young people today. And I don't know if it's because it's more competitive or you have more information at your fingertips, but sometimes just doing your best and moving on and getting done with it is good enough. And so I think that's really important, that you've got to be broad, you've got to follow what's in your heart. And, if linear algebra lights you up like a Christmas tree, go for it. But if it doesn't, then get it done to the best of your ability and move on to the things that you do love, because the pain is temporary.
Absolutely. Yeah, great points. John, how about yourself?
There's two things I definitely do differently. I would focus a lot more on my physical well-being. I'm a very active person in general, but I found in university I neglected that. And so I would lean into that a lot more. I know Max is on the line as well. I think we said he's part of varsity. So I would try and be more physically active, because I find when you're more physically active, your brain actually works better. And a lot of times when you're just focused on school, you let that part slip. So that was something I definitely let slip in university, which I regained when I started working. And two, I would just put myself in more uncomfortable situations outside of the bubble of school. I waited really until third and fourth year, and I stumbled into the workforce by complete accident, and my life could have been completely different if that had not happened. But you can actively put yourself in situations outside of the school bubble, whether it's through friends and family in the workforce, joining some organization outside of school. I think that gives you such a huge perspective of what's possible beyond school, that normally in the 4 years of school, you're just surrounded by students. So you have no context of what happens outside of university. And very quickly, if you can get a couple years or even 2-3 years head start on all your peers, that is hugely valuable. Because I was freaked about sending my resume out, because I'd never done it before. Like, it sounds so stupid now, like, just send your resume. It's a form of networking, right? But at the time, I was obsessed with it. Am I going to have the right information on my CV? What if I get rejected? I've been rejected so many times in business. It's not even a thing anymore. It's just life, right? It's just you just learn to accept it. So if you get started on that when you're in first or second year, by the time you hit third and fourth year, you already have been in that mindset of stepping into the real world, which I did unfortunately late. It worked out fine for me, but I was very anxious when I hit third and fourth year. What was my job going to be? What was I going to do after I graduated?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people have very similar concerns, right? And the good news is that there are a lot of people who have gone through that. And so the easiest way to understand how people have coped with it is just asking the question, maybe using the AMP, maybe talking to people who who have graduated, maybe talking to other students. People are willing to help, and there's a lot of resources out there. So just being cognizant of time, I know we're approaching kind of the cliff of our question asking period, and I want to thank all of the panelists so far for everything we've discussed. I think there's been a lot of knowledge shared here today and a lot of valuable opinions. Before we stop though, I want to get very specific. I know we're talking very generally about mentorship and how that's impacted people's lives and providing general advice, but a question to the panel generally. Can you name something specific, something very specific in the context of your career or in life that a mentor or mentee has helped you with? What was it, if you're willing to share, and what was the impact of that information sharing? It's a bit of a tough one, but I can say, oh, Gina, sorry, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Oh, no question. No question at all. So my first book hit the bestseller list because of Bob Proctor. End of conversation. He taught me how to do it and how to market it, and it worked. And then what happened there was I launched a sort of a private client, sort of an elite group of people. I don't do a ton of private client work, but I do have an elite group of people that is now global. But at the time, he put me in touch with my first one. And from that, I developed something called the process of breakthrough. So without that man sort of, and he's a lot older than I am, without him sharing how it goes and the secrets and all the things that he did wrong that I wouldn't have to do wrong, saved me probably 20 years. So at this point now, I wouldn't be where I am if he hadn't have fast forwarded me by those decades. By shortening it, he basically did all the trial and error and then told me the way. And so, you can't, and I really want to give back. I mean, I mentor like crazy, and I can't stress to kids enough. We want to do it because it's like paying it forward. So I want to do it because he did it. And so, and I can see other people nodding their heads. At some point I threw in here a link. I give away a lot of my stuff for free. I'll throw the link in there. There's no strings attached. It's free. You guys can use it. I want you to succeed. It's a legit desire of a mentor.
Yeah, incredibly valuable information, and being a bestseller is no easy feat. So that's an incredible accomplishment. Anything else? Any other tidbits, Victor or Tony, that you'd want to offer?
Yeah, sure. I guess I can answer, a couple questions in this one response. Is sort of we talked about how a mentee can give back, right? And I want to share one example of someone that I mentored turning around and helping me. So it was she was an engineering student, and she was working at a startup on renewable energy vehicles, right? I was looking at Tesla at the time as a potential investment, and I did all my industry research, all those kind of stuff on my own, but also just one day, I was talking with her and I asked her about her thoughts on what she was working on and what her firm was doing, and we just had this great conversation, right, about getting a different perspective. So her firm was very her firm was heavy on hydrogen fuel cells, and she wasn't very bullish about having basically lithium batteries, and sort of we got into this discussion about sort of why her firm felt that way, and sort of what the differences are, and sort of where the newest technology breakthroughs are, and are sort of in different parts of the world, and so on and so forth. It was just a very interesting conversation. And so I just want to throw this out there for students, right? Like, it might just be a class you're taking, right? Or a potentially a research project or a design project you're working on, and just sort of sharing what you learned through that with your mentor might just, it's not going to change the world, but it might just offer a different perspective to an intractable problem that he might be working on, and allow him to have a eureka moment and figure something out. So again, just don't be shy to share. Don't be shy to ask for help, and don't be shy to just share your what you learned recently, right? And it is a two-way relationship. And like Gina said, we get a hell of a kick out of you guys becoming more successful than we ever will be. But at the same time, we also just are interested, very genuinely interested in what you guys are doing, how you guys are doing, and sort of just sort of what else is new at school and in academia.
Yeah, super valuable. And to your point, it definitely is a two-way street as long as people are willing to be engaged in a conversation and willing to continue the mentorship, the networking. So very good points. Tony, anything else you want to add before we conclude?
No, not so much. I was just gonna tell a story on how after I got my job offer, I was thinking if it's appropriate to ask them for me to start later, because I really like the job, and I also know that they're hiring for a 16-month while I only want to work for like 12 or 14. So that was a big decision that I have to discuss with all three of my mentors. And at the end, I was able to negotiate to start later, although it didn't help very much because I was planning to travel, but because of COVID, it didn't go anywhere.
Yeah, very specific things we can talk about as well, which is part of the benefit of a relationship. There's so many questions coming into the chat now, and I really want to answer all of them. Sonia, do we have to pivot now to the presentation, or can we answer a few more of them?
I think we can do a few questions just very quickly. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So this question's from Ramanpreet. So she asked, what advice would you give to people who are interested in entrepreneurship and dream of opening up their own businesses one day? Right now, my goal feels a bit far-fetched. There's something that we can do to get closer to that goal. So given that there's a lot of entrepreneurs on the panel, this is probably a very appropriate question. I'll open it up to the panel.
I can answer that. I'd say find someone in a lateral or something in a similar industry that you're trying to get into as an entrepreneur, and try and establish a relationship there, because I think as one of the panelists mentioned earlier, Gina, we are your guys. Like, there's this cliche: if you were 40 years old, what would you tell your 20-year-old self? We are you, right? We're like 10, 20 years ahead of you. We've lived your life. We've probably lived where you want to go. And entrepreneurship, it's so far beyond what they teach you in school. Like, entrepreneurship is so many variables about. It's not just about business. It's about raising capital, establishing relationships. How do you pitch to people? How do you overcome stress? How do you overcome failure? It's like you can only have lived it. There is no way to read it in a book. And if you can find one or two people or multiple people that have already lived it, they will help you get there way sooner than if you tried it yourself. Like, so much faster.
Yeah, that's
Also,
an amazing point.
there's a global organization I just threw the network in the chat called the Entrepreneurs Organization, and they have student entrepreneur awards every year, Global Student Entrepreneur Awards. They also have a whole program around building student entrepreneurs. So you reach out to them and just start to get involved with whatever they're offering. It is a global network of hundreds of thousands of entrepreneurs. And I'm not just talking any entrepreneurs. I mean, I've been a speaker on this circuit for a long time. These are some of the best, and they are sharing like crazy information with students.
That is very valuable. And I see you posted that in the chat. Is that right, Gina?
Also the book, The E-Myth. Read The E-Myth. If you want to be an entrepreneur, read The E-Myth.
Amazing feedback.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I agree with both of the two previous responses. And sort of again, I think every person is different. Some people are probably more comfortable with one approach than others. I think sort of the two things that I would recommend is basically that, right? Talking to more people and living the lives of these great entrepreneurs vicariously through reading their stories, right? Like if you want to become an entrepreneur, read Steve Jobs' biography, right? Read the Everything Store about Amazon, right? Read Bad Blood about how Theranos went from this biotech darling to people going to jail, right? Like just read their stories, figure out sort of what they did, how they got there, sort of what the world is like, and then go out and talk to people, right? Talk to to people that have started businesses, talk to people that have worked at startups, talk to people that have, had their companies go bankrupt, right? Like just talk to people and sort of seek their advice on what it's like and sort of what it takes to get to where they have been.
Yeah, incredibly useful. We're running out of time. I want to ask a different question. I know we have a lot of mentors on the panel, and we've asked a lot of questions about maybe that are a little bit more mentee specific. Given that a lot of you are mentors, what advice would you offer to the mentors who are, let's say, new or even a little bit more experienced? Tips or tricks or how to be an effective mentor? What would you all say to that?
I can answer that. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Gina.
That's it. I want to say give. Just give.
I've mentored, I think, 7 students at this point over 4 or 5 years. And the one big thing I would say is you're not there to try and help the student live their life. You're trying to help them. I think you're trying to help them just see opportunities and see how to think. And by giving advice and I tell a lot of stories to people that I'm mentoring of specific situations I have been in, where I've probably been in the same situation as you, and it could be as simple as, how do I improve my resume? How do I get a job? How do I do an interview? How do I network? And I just give an example of how I overcame that, and I use that as a story of saying, don't live my life, but try and take what I've done as a way to incorporate into the way you live your life. And so I'm not actually trying to fix their resume. I'm just trying to explain this is how I made my resume better. And hopefully they take a tidbit on that of how then they can take everything they've learned and make their resume better. Or like, this is how I got my first job. Like, this is how I did a brute force method and like got my first few interviews. This is how I established my first contract or raised my first capital. Like, this is the path I did. And so all those pieces, it's if I explain how I did it, you're not going to live my life because you're not me, but you can take a piece of how I did it and hopefully incorporate it in the way you end up achieving your goals.
Yeah, and anecdotes are very, very powerful in illustrating how you've approached the problem, not necessarily what the solution was, because every problem is different. Maybe let's hear quickly from Gina and Victor and Tony very quickly if you'd like, and then we can close off the panel.
Yeah, I agree with. It's just the advice I give to mentees is always sort of don't be so myopic. Right? Don't just look for the next summer job. It's not going to matter. But I guess the same advice can be applied to mentors as well. If your mentee has that mentality, I guess you should try to help him by inspiring him to think bigger, to think longer, to think about not be so myopic about just the next step, but to challenge him to think outside of the box, right? Like, okay, forget this summer job. Where do you see yourself in 10 years, right? How can we plan this out to get you there, right? Instead of spending all your energy on this one little thing, why don't we take a step back and then see what bigger things we can talk about, right? So sometimes the students get hung up on something, right? And I think it would be great if you as a mentor can help them step over that boulder that's blocking his view of the ocean.
That's incredibly valuable information. Gina?
I think as a mentor, I mean, I said this earlier, is your job is to give, right? It's not to, and I don't give advice. Your job is to support what the person is asking for help in. So I think of it more like opening doors, right? I mean, my first experience with mentorship was as a big sister, really, in the Big Sisters organization. And your job isn't to do the other person's life. That your job is to show them, not even open the doors, show them how many doors there are, and let them walk through the doors that make sense for them. But for me, it's about how much can I give to this person that will help them get where they're going faster and with less effort.
That's very good advice as well. Well, I want to thank you for your time and joining the panel and for the knowledge that you've been able to share. I hope that what we talked about today helps mentees, mentors, really anyone with pursuing their goals, their objectives. And again, I want to thank everyone, John, Gina, Victor, and Tony, and the entire group for hosting the panel discussion. And again, thank you for your time and joining us in this conversation.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Sonia, should we go to the presentation now?
Absolutely. Let's jump right in. So yep. For everyone, we'll be kind of going through the next steps on how to join the program.
Okay. So I'll just give a very brief overview. I know we talked to death about mentorship at this point. Now we talked about the power of mentorship. Now we're going to talk about how you can actually get a mentor. That's what the AMP's mission is to facilitate those types of connections. You can see what our vision is here. What we'd want to do is encourage and empower students to find connections with alumni and create a culture of mentorship. And you can see our panelists are part of that culture. And it really is kind of the first step in meeting your goals or just moving towards what you want to achieve. Go to the next slide. Can everyone see all these photos?
Yes.
Okay, I'm assuming yes. So what does mentorship actually look like? This is supposed to be slightly funny. That's going to be hard when I can't hear anybody laughing if it is funny. So mentorship, it looks like Good Will Hunting and Sean Maguire, or Will Hunting and Sean Maguire, Dumbledore, Harry Potter. That's a mentorship. Gandalf the Grey. That's a mentorship. Michelle Obama, she was actually Barack Obama's mentor when he joined the law firm that they met at. So they come in a lot of shapes and sizes. Sometimes they're mythical, sometimes they end up in marriage, not that they always will. But it's really just an exchange of knowledge, a relationship where people talk and they learn from each other. If we go to the next slide, this kind of compounds on that. What is mentorship exactly? It's typically two people. There's a transfer of knowledge or an exchange, and there's an experienced and typically there's an unexperienced party. There's a relationship. I came up with this last year, and I thought this was funny. It's a bit of an engineering way to show what mentorship could look like in a three-phase diagram, where that the line that kind of swoops down, that's the cumulative time spent, and the one going up, it's perceived value of knowledge. So Michelle Obama and Barack Obama would fall into that spousal overlap where there's a lot of time spent. They really like each other. There's a lot of knowledge that they're sharing, and they love each other, so they decide to get married. And mentorship is really there's an exchange of knowledge that somebody finds valuable, and there's time put into the relationship. So that's ultimately what mentorship is, and it really just starts with a question or an expression of interest. Going over to what the mentor is, or what we expect of our mentors and our mentees, I'll pass it over to Maxwell, who'll give a quick overview of the mentors and then mentees as a part of the program.
Hey everybody, so I'll just go quickly over what mentors and mentees look like in our program. So mentors are all U of T engineering alumni, and they spread over varying industries and also like disciplines and degrees. And so you kind of got in a taste of that from the superstars we've seen on our panel. Like they've kind of mentioned, mentors, they want to kind of give to the mentees in any way they can and kind of like, direct and guide them, throughout their undergraduate and graduate school experiences. So for me, Luigi was actually a mentor that I met at a mentorship event. And so not only has he helped me kind of become involved in the AMP, but he's helped me in terms of like career and lifestyle decisions. And so I think it's important for mentors to understand that as a mentee, we kind of enjoy just whatever you kind of have to offer and give. And a lot of the times it's like it might be a nerve-wracking experience as a mentee to kind of reach out to somebody who seems, a lot more older, a lot more experienced. And so anything you guys kind of do to kind of ease that and break the ice helps a lot. Luigi's kind of come as from like this big like professional guy who just seems like he has everything together to still in that position, but also more of a friend as well. So I think it's important for both of those relationships and both of those things to exist in a relationship. So as a mentee, like myself, those are any students at U of T, and that includes undergraduate students or master students. So you can be in your PhD, be doing your master's, or you can be an undergraduate. And we welcome all of you guys to come and join our program to be a mentee, because everybody can learn something. I think the best thing to do as a mentee is just show that you're willing to learn and be engaging. Obviously, it's important to respect your mentor's time, but it's also important to show that you want to learn and you want to grow. So if you're driven and you can show that to your mentor, they'll be more than happy to help. All the mentors that you've seen on the panelists, they enjoy giving and they're happy to be there to help you. So as long as you put in the effort, you kind of get out what you put into it, and so that's kind of an overview of the mentors and mentees in our program.
Absolutely. Thanks, Max. And it's funny that you say that, because I definitely don't have it together. But when I look at my mentors, I think, wow, these people really have it together. Gina, John, Victor, they all have it together. Super impressive. I just want to learn from them. And so that I think that feeling is very common for a lot of people. So if we move on if we talk about the timeline, Sonia or Steve, did you want to talk about this, or do you want me to?
Feel free to go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So in terms of the timeline for applying, so this is actually how you apply to the program. Wednesday, September 23rd by 5 p.m. That's the deadline to apply to the program. You want to apply to the program, and you're guaranteed a match by October 6th. So make sure September 23rd, 5 p.m. That's in your calendar. Actually, the best thing for you to do now, if you're on the chat, is to take an additional minute, go apply now, and start reaching out to mentors. You don't need to necessarily wait for the program to close. Do it now, because if you wait, there's a high likelihood that you're going to forget. So I suggest go sign up now. And I see some questions about the link. Maybe Steve or Max, if you can just throw the link in the chat, it'll be really easy for people just to apply straight from this conversation. Friday, September 25th. This is when the Alumni Mentorship Program will be confirmed. Student mentees will be notified of their admission status into the AMP. Wednesday, October 6th by 5 p.m. Join the AMP group on Connect. Student mentees and alumni mentors they've joined the Alumni Mentorship group with Connect. So once you actually join Connect, you need to go and subscribe to a group 2020-2021 AMP. Okay, continuing timeline, Tuesday, October 6th, you're going to be matching with your mentor. Now, how do you match with a mentor? This is a question that we always get. This program, like many things in life, you get out of it what you put into it. You need to make an effort to go find people who you think are interesting. The reason why we have people on the panels is so you can see who's part of this community. So let's say you wanted to go ask John Lem or Victor or Gina. If you wanted to talk to Tony, or you want to talk to me or Max or anybody, you would look us up on Connect and you would send a request. Now, there are a lot of people, there are a lot of really talented mentors, a lot of bright mentors who are just not able to fit on the panel. So don't think that only the people on the panel should be reached out to. There are a lot of people. I think if you want to find somebody, first ask yourself, what am I interested in? Am I interested in a career in a certain industry? If so, find somebody in that career. If you're interested in just talking to somebody, then you can be a little bit more broad, but do your research. Look at the people who are signed up, and then maybe build a top 5 list, because there's going to be people who are quite busy, and I'm not sure we're going to be able to accommodate, let's say, 10 people for one mentor, but make sure you make an effort to look for mentors. Okay, moving on. And anyway, if you have questions, if I'm not being clear, please drop it in the chat and I'll clarify. Wednesday, October 7th at 6:30, we're going to have our kickoff. You're going to meet your mentor, or mentors are going to meet mentees. Since this is virtual, though, we're going to try and set up individual rooms where mentees can just meet mentors, and they'll be able to ask questions. And we'll try and do a couple of those. So make sure you register for that event. If you don't have a mentor by then, it's completely fine. If you don't have a mentee by then, it's completely fine. That'll be an event where you can meet these people and form those connections. Okay, the application form. There's some simple questions on there. make sure they're thoughtful. We typically allow most people to join the program, but if it's very clear that there's no effort or you don't care to answer the question appropriately, then we probably won't admit you into the program. Only because, like I said, you get what you put into it. If we have a mentee or a mentor that doesn't seem very serious, we know that there's going to be somebody else on the other end of the relationship who's not going to get the most out of that as well. So we want to make sure that there's a lot of people who are genuinely interested. Okay. Sonia, should I pass it over to you?
I think Sarah's next.
Okay, sorry, Sarah.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Sarah Steed. I work in the Office of Advancement along with Sonia and Steve and so many others. Hopefully we've met in the past in person. I manage U of T Engineering Connect, which is the online community for alumni as well as students and faculty and staff. We have a little over 10,000 members in the membership now. And part of being a part of the Alumni Mentorship Program this year, as well as last year for those of you that were a part of it, means that we encourage all participants of the AMP program to go ahead and join the Engineering Connect as a first step. From there, once your profile is approved, which doesn't take very long, I'll be doing lots of approvals tonight, tomorrow, and really every day through September along with some colleagues. From there, you'll get notification that your account's been approved, and you'll log in a second time. And I highly recommend saving your credentials on your trusted device when you do that. That way, anytime we send you a link that's in Connect, leading you straight to content that matters to you in the moment, it'll take you there. If you don't save your credentials, of course, then each time you'll be asked to log back in. So once you've logged in this second time, you'll go ahead and join the AMP group within the Groups tab. U of T Engineering Connect is much like any other social media that you may be used to using or LinkedIn. In many ways, it's even similar to BB Collaborate that you joined today to be at this event. And so it's pretty intuitive, but I'm here to help, and so is Steve. And so if there are any moments where you're unsure where something is, by all means, you can ping us and ask over email and so forth. Once you've joined the AMP group, that means that you're a part of the program for the year, except for students, of course, who you'll fill in your questionnaire and application, which is what all of those links were leading to in the chat before I started. What you'll want to do, of course, is also consider using your smartphone and downloading an app for Connect, because it may make it easy for you to stay in touch with your mentor once you've been matched. I jumped ahead a little bit there, but when you're in the group, for example, there will be that time period where Steve will indicate for all of you that students should be kind of shopping for a mentor. And what you'll do is you'll go into the group itself, AMP group, and you'll look at the members. And from there, you can use any of the smart filters to look through all of the various alumni that have put up their hand virtually and said that they're willing to help. And so here's an example on screen. If you can see me full screen, you can actually toggle down to the bottom and click on the slides instead and make that your full screen. It'll make it easier for you to see all of these details. So as I was saying earlier, you'll go to the group, you'll go to AMP, which is Alumni Mentorship Program, and then go to Members. And here's where you'll see all of the alum. If you go to, for instance, the affiliation filter on that right-hand side, and you'll select alumni. If you leave the affiliation blank, then it'll show all of the students that are in the program as well as the mentors. But obviously, if you're a student, it's likely that you're looking to match with an alum. There are plenty of young alum as well that are in this because they really want to have an older or more seasoned alum be their mentor. And so certainly if you're a young alumni, you're more than welcome to be a mentor to a student as well as be a mentee to a fellow alum. So you could do both. You'll be seeking and searching through the directory, clicking on people's profiles to read more, and you'll see that when you do decide, for instance, on a particular person that you would like to ask or request mentorship from, let's say it was Sweeney, you can see that on your screen now, then you could request mentoring. And by doing that, you'll be prompted to send a message along to this potential mentor candidate. You can edit the message. There's a templated version that pops up for you, and in the requesting mentorship filter that you can see in this screenshot, there are a variety of other things that you could do. So you could say that you just wanted to ask advice, for instance. But in this case, for AMP, you'd want to keep it on request mentoring. So we'll provide these slides again, but as I said before, we're here to help and help you walk through the process. We really want to leave it to the students, though, to do kind of the shopping in the member section, to really take your time to do that, and to also consider that when you're looking for a mentor, you may have joined the info session today because you thought you had a very clear indication that you wanted to talk to someone that works at this specific company for this specific reason. Bear in mind that there are alumni that are putting up their hand virtually who may not work for that exact company, but they certainly have a variety and vast amount of breadth and depth that they could offer that you may not know. And so we really ask you to step outside of any of the boundaries that you may have put on why this experience was so valuable to you. I'm going to pass it over to Sonia.
Thanks so much, Sarah. The power of Connect, and I love that directory bar. Know that you can put just about any word to search the mentors' profiles in there to kind of help you find people that you're looking for. At any rate, I think a big part of what we heard tonight is kind of looking ahead and planning. And part of this process is understanding as students, why did you join? Why do you want to join the program? Why do you want to join the mentorship program? What is it that you're looking for? And that really kind of, this next slide is really talking about setting those goals and understanding what those goals are. And I think that really helps clarify in the relationship you have with your mentor what your objectives are. So some suggested goals could be obtaining advice on specific learning or development opportunities, obtaining substantive knowledge related to your field, obtaining insights into best practices, values, and culture within your field, discovering your strengths and areas for development, exploring career choices and opportunities, establishing your personal or professional brand, building a professional online presence, refining your interpersonal skills, meeting other professionals in your prospective field. I would discourage people from saying, like right off the bat, that their goal is to get a job. You're not joining the mentorship program to ask your mentor for a job. It may come out. We've often seen happy outcomes where people do get jobs because the alumni have been so impressed. But I think it's really setting those clear objectives for yourselves in that relationship. So a little bit of what happens next. On October 7th, we're going to have from 6:30 to 8 p.m. You'll be sent a virtual event link once again, and that's going to be the kickoff to the mentorship program. So what you need to do before that is join the Connect group. Well, students fill in your application. Alumni need to join the Alumni Mentorship Program group in Connect, as well as the students. And students, seek out your mentor. Ask them, send them a request. Be thoughtful about your request when you send it to them, when you send them a message, so that, because they may be getting more than one request, and hopefully yours will be, they will pick you because you're clear with your objectives. So on October 7th, you'll have a chance to meet your mentor, like the matches will hopefully have a chance to meet other fellow program participants, discuss your program goals. So it's really important for you to think about those. And so we do hope that people will join us on that night. The registration details will be sent out to everyone once they've joined the program. Can a mentee have multiple mentors? I just saw a question pop up. Absolutely. Because I think people, students or alumni even for that matter, that are seeking mentors, you're looking for different things, and maybe you find them in one person, but maybe you find them in multiple people. Or maybe you're also pursuing different, you have different ideas of what you want to get into. Just search those mentor profiles and the world is your oyster there. So over the last year, our office, the alumni office, has partnered officially with a number of stakeholder units in the faculty. You're seeing them here, they're listed, the Your Next Career Network. And so as part of this partnership that we are cross-promoting each other's events and working together in developing the best professional development opportunities for the students. So the Your Next Career Fair is one of these organizations. They're having their career fair October 8th and 9th. Engineering Career Center, they're doing PY Mentorship Program, exploring PY co-op programs for first-year students. The iLead Leadership Labs, which there's a whole bunch of great opportunities for you to kind of plan and help plan your future strategies, your campus involvement, your peak performance, managing time and stress. iLead Career Talks as well, software development coming up on September 30th, and research and academia talks. A lot of these also involve alumni. We have guest alumni that are part of those talks as well. I wanted to thank our engineering alumni mentorship leadership team that are all made up of volunteers. So I want to do a big shout out to Luigi. Thank you for tonight. Maxwell, as well as Rena and Emily. We are also looking for a graduate. I'm sorry, it's not looking, it's kind of the logo at the bottom has taken it out on my screen. But we are also looking for a graduate rep to actually be the conduit to the graduate student body as well. We think we've had great success. We can see it already by having Maxwell and his team as a part of the mentorship program. So if you're a graduate student and would like to be more involved in a volunteer role with the Alumni Mentorship Program leadership team, you can message any one of us after this event tonight. And that is it for tonight. You will be getting an opportunity to also provide us with your feedback on the types of things you'd love to see for the program. But I can't thank you guys all enough for joining us tonight. So on behalf of the U of T Engineering, I'd like to thank our panelists, Victor, Gina, Tony, and John, as well as our AMP leadership team, for participating in our Power of Mentorship panel. I was truly inspired. We had some thoughtful discussions here tonight and great advice. Your experiences and insights have been well received. We truly appreciate you sharing your time and expertise with us today. I'd also like to again recognize Manulife for their support of the AMP program through the U of T Pillar Sponsorship Program. Without further ado, I'd like to thank each of you for your support as a member of the U of T Youth Engineering community and for being a vital part of the University of Toronto. And with that, on behalf of the AMP and the Faculty of Applied Science and Engineering, I hereby adjourn our discussion today. Whether you're near or far, we're so thankful you were able to join us and wish you a safe and healthy evening. Bye, everyone. Thank you for joining us.